The sun is still shining, guaranteed. So what does that mean for our felt experience, emotionally, psychologically, as humans, bumbling through this life? Quite simply, it means that when we're caught in what I'll call weather for tonight, clouds, difficult emotional states, challenging stories, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, grief, loss, cancer diagnoses, broken bones, all these sorts of things, dispute with a friend, losing a friendship over a misunderstanding, all the things that can come and go in our life. When we can remember to remind ourselves, these are clouds and it really is suffering right now, but the sun is always shining, it can help. I know that sounds a bit lame. Yeah, well, that's not going to help me get over the fact that my best friend was killed in a car accident yesterday, and that was part of what was going on, which it is sometimes, isn't it? I don't mean it in a facetious way, and I don't mean it in an overly simplistic way. I mean it in the depth of the truth of reality, which is not mine as Buddhist, but people far wiser than I. The depth of the truth of reality is everything changes and everything ends. So when caught in pain, when caught in suffering, the Pali word dukkha, when caught in the difficulties of this precious human life, no matter what the weather is, no matter how much grief, pain, anger, rage, or fear we're in, the sun, in this case, we hear about 4 aspects of that sun, the 4 noble mind states, and we teach about that in this talk. Under the grief, the pain, the selfishness, the rage, the fear, the terror, all the things, as my niece would say, is radiant light, literally or metaphorically, of a kind, peaceful calm. It's always there. It's covered up by, or tossed about by, or obscured by the clouds of our emotions, our thoughts, our concepts, our misunderstandings, our clingings. There's so many different teachings right there, and I can't pull them all apart in a short retreat, but you can hear them in the future. If you haven't heard them yet, you can read about them. Keep coming to classes. You can also call it all the crap, all the pain that leads to the suffering. It certainly feels real, but have any of you managed to be anxious continually for a month? No. Have any of you managed to be in a state of painful, sobbing grief every second for a month? No. Thank goodness. Thank goodness, because the truth of that simple experience does tell us nothing lasts. Even our darkest grief, there's a reprieve for 5 or 10 minutes that the cat does something hilarious, or your gorgeous child says something so thoughtful and sweet that you forget for a few minutes. There's space for a few minutes. The sun is accessed again. And then that grief, that memory of loss can come rushing back in. So I wanted to put that out as one of the themes for this weekend, is the reminder that the sun is always shining. The state of feeling good, put it very simply. The state of feeling calm, curious, loving, happy, content, even wonderful, is always present. I know that is not what we believe we're experiencing, but I have unshakable faith and a lot of evidence from a lot of you and other people that even in our worst, there are moments of grace. Your eyesight is caught by a hummingbird and you forget for 60 seconds how anxious you are. And those are moments, those are little moments of awakening, little moments of hope. And I want us to remember those moments. So here we are in a glorious, rainy, sleety, fantastic storm. There's an almost full moon beaming down on us. I just thought like Chenrezig, White Tara. If those names don't mean anything to you, no problem. They're archetypal figures in Tibetan meditation. This is White Tara here, draped in the moonstones. The color of the moon. I wear a moonstone around my neck, and I have for 10 years. To remind me, the moon, the sun, the Tara is always there. Sure is. Hell don't feel like it a lot, though. Grumpy, feeling selfish, feeling hurt, feeling grief, feeling sick, feeling tired. I'm a human being in a human body. I'm not a Buddha yet. But when I remember, even in the midst of the turmoil, right, Cheryl, there's the moon, there's the sun. This too shall pass. It helps. Doesn't take the pain away every time, does it? Of course not. Not yet, anyway. If we develop these muscles to the point where they're that much stronger and more flexible, we can dissolve those states much more quickly and much more often. But do not beat yourself up if that is super hard and feels out of reach. It does to all of us some of the time. So that's the introduction this evening. The sun under the clouds, always shining. We can't change the external all the time. We can't change being evicted if that is the truth of what's happening. But we can always change our internal. We can always work with our reaction to things, with our interpretation of things, with the stories we make up about things. We can always rewrite the narrative. Hallelujah! You're the authors. You're the authors of your nightmares, and you're the author of the most glorious dreams, not dreams as well. So the power is in our hands and our minds and our hearts, which is why some of us practice this quite a lot. Because nothing else I have found works as well. And I'm a psychologist, and I'm a great, I don't want to say lover of the field, but I'm a great admirer of the field of psychology. I'm deeply privileged and blessed to be able to work in a psychological manner with incredible people, and maybe in some small way help them find the sun under the clouds. I don't teach Dharma language as a psychologist, except with Buddhist-leaning people who come to me partly because they know this is my predilection. And then we might talk in some of this language. It doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it Fred and Jennifer. It doesn't matter what you call it. You can still live and teach in alignment with what's going on in your mind and your story here is really, really painful. What's happening, the events in your life are really, really painful. Can we find a little bit of space for you to at least feel a glimmer of when you used to feel better? The answer is yes. And for, I think, everybody in this room, myself included, it sure feels out of reach a lot of the time. Haven't you ever had the experience, maybe recently, where you've told yourself all the intelligent, accurate things? You know, this isn't as big of a deal as I'm making it. Yeah, this is rough, and no, I don't want it, but I'll be okay eventually. And it didn't work? Of course. If we consider work, poof, all the pain goes away. But sometimes it will. The more you practice working with your mind and your heart this way, I can guarantee you, because you're not uniquely broken. You're not the only one in this room for whom this won't work, even though 3/4 of you are thinking that right now. None of you are the one for whom it won't help. But certainly in my own jiggy-jaggy path, it doesn't help consistently and all the time and in an inclining form on the graph. It's more like this. But you can find moments of ease and grace in the worst circumstances, and those can give you strength. Because when you see or feel the heat or the light of the sun in the middle of a violent storm, it reminds you it is there. And in time, this storm will blow itself out. You've had those experiences. Think of a grief or a heartache or an anger or a hurt from a long time ago. Maybe a heartbreak in your teens or your 20s that really, really, really hurt. And I think of more than one. Does it hurt right now? Probably not. Even a loss of a beloved friend, parent, grandparent from several decades ago. Does it hurt right now? Probably not. When we bring that up, we might have a bit of, oh gosh, I miss them, they were glorious. But it doesn't hurt the same way. So don't take my word for it, and don't take the Buddha's word for it. Take the evidence of your own experience. That you haven't yet managed to be broken forever by life. Well, we may have some pretty scarred bits, for sure. But isn't it Leonard Cohen says the world breaks everything, that's how the light gets in? Smart fella, and a dedicated Zen Buddhist practitioner as well. So that was just the introduction. It's not even what the talk's really about, but it's exactly what it's about. It's what every breath is about, what every thought is about, what every moment is about, is are we tangled in dukkha, in suffering, when there's a choice to work to dissolve it. So now, I'm going to talk about the fact that the Buddha was a really, really, really good psychologist. He worked with what are the difficult mind states that lead to suffering, pain, discomfort, and what are the mind states that relieve suffering, pain, discomfort. In a nutshell, he was the original great psychologist. What is the mind doing? What are emotions? There's no word for emotion in Pali. There's related words, but it's more of a Western idea. Because to a large degree, in Buddha Dharma, across various forms, various countries have different styles and types of Buddha Dharma practice, of course, there isn't really a word for emotions. And there's not really a word for mind. The word I'm going to use tonight is chitta, C-I-T-T-A, chitta. It's generally pronounced. I'm not a scholar of the language, don't claim to be. And chitta means heart-mind. Heart-mind. Isn't that something? We have mind and we have heart. Even in the title of this retreat, I called it Peaceful Mind, Happy Heart. But that was a red herring. Because really, it's heart-mind. Peaceful mind, heart. Happy mind, heart. Chitta. As some of you know that have been to my home and met my menagerie of rescue animals, they mostly have Buddhist names. The next cat's going to be called Chitta. I've got a Sukha and a Kunga and a Zigzag. I'm going to have a Chitta. And then I'm going to have a Piti, which means bubbly joy. So, lots of great names for your pets in Buddha Dharma. So, yes, I'm going to tell you briefly the 3 negative poisonous mind states. You met them in your guided meditation today. They were 3 monkeys. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 poisonous emotions, maybe for 10 minutes, because tomorrow night's talk is going to expand on that. And then I'm going to talk about the 4 noble, beautiful mind states, the suns that are shining under all the clouds and turbulence. So this great psychologist, the Buddha, taught that of all the negative states, all the suffering, all the mental, emotional pain we ever experience, and goodness knows there's a heck of a lot, for most of us, even if we have a fairly easeful life, meaning we haven't had multiple losses, we haven't had multiple traumas, most of our family and friends are alive and well, even if we've had fairly easeful lives, partly by luck of the draw so far, we still suffer a lot. And the Buddha said there's only 3 root poisons. Poison's a pretty heavy word, an important word, pay attention to that word. If I had 3 cups of poison and I said, hey, Bridget, drink these, hopefully you'd say, no! I like you and all, but no! I'm not going to drink 3 cups of poison. I'm not an idiot. Good. That's an excellent and correct choice. So when the Buddha teaches us, here are the 3 root poisons. How about we work to understand them better and to reduce them? The word in Pali is hetu, H-E-T-U, which means root. And think of a root. What is a root? I'm not much of a gardener, but even I know that plants and trees have roots. And the roots are what they draw their sustenance from. And some of you that are much more well acquainted with gardening than I know that there's certain things, maybe blackberries are one of them, in my house, I'm not sure, but that if you chop them down and you don't pull out the roots, what happens? Well, next year they're weaving in and out of your fence posts and ruining them again. So if you're going to attempt to eradicate something, you're already a step ahead of me, we want to pull it out at the root. So these are the 3 root poisonous emotions, we'll call them tonight. The 3 root poisonous mind states. And the Buddha says, all of it, if we named in English right now, if we had a think tank, I don't think we'll do it tonight verbally because you're doing so beautiful with silence. But if I had to shout out negative emotions, we'd probably compile 30 or 40 or 50 variations on negative emotions, right? From envy to slight irritation to vague discontent, and so on and so on and so on. We'd be able to, have a lot of different colors of negative emotions, painful emotions. And the Buddha said, yeah, true that. I'm sure that's exactly what he said in Pali. Quite certain. True that. There's a lot of experiences, but they all boil down to 3 counts. There's 3 root negative mind states or 3 root negative emotions, and that's it. Well, that's quite helpful. And of course, I'm going to share them in a minute, and we're going to talk more about it in tomorrow's next class. Because, we can look for 3, right? We can keep our awareness, keep our vigilance, keep our wisdom, say, when are one of these 3 present? Ow. And what can I do to reduce it? These are the 3 poisons. Take this seriously. The first one, that was the first monkey you met in your forest today. The people on YouTube are like, what now? Sorry, you had to be here. The first monkey you met in the forest was greedy, right? Had all the bananas, stealing all the things. And many of you may have traveled in your life to India or Africa or somewhere and been robbed by a monkey. There are actually trained hordes of roving stealer monkeys you may have run into. I used to love that movie Oliver Twist when I was a kid, or the theatrical play. If you don't know it, it's about a young orphan who ends up on the streets and he falls in with a cheerful and not nasty gang of thieves, and they're pickpockets, and they're run by an old guy called Fagin. And he's got all these lovely kids, and he treats them well enough and feeds them and clothes them and sends them out to pickpockets, and they bring the dough back to Fagin. What a good gig. Well, there's persons that do that with monkeys in India. And the monkeys are trained to steal your iPhone, your watch, your sunglasses off your face. And I don't care how smart you think you are. They're smarter, they're more nimble, and they're quicker. And they steal your stuff, and they run back to their Fagin, and they probably get a banana. So greedy monkeys, they want stuff. They're trained for stuff. They want stuff. There's an experiment. It's not a cruel experiment. I won't share cruel experiments here. But there's an interesting experiment that zoologists did, mammal study person, did with a monkey where it was a puzzle box, and it was slats where the monkey could fit its arm through, grab a banana, but it couldn't pull its arm out when it hung on to the banana, obviously, right? Very pissed off monkey. Does it sound like you sometimes? Having a little tantrum? Because you want this thing and you're not going to let go of it. That's greed. That's the first root poison. Of course, what did the monkey have to do to get its arm out? Just let go of the banana and the arm came out, no problem. But they didn't. They spent a long time refusing to let go. How many of you resonate with that? Right. Whether it's we're hanging on to a love affair, whether we're hanging on to really wanting that promotion and feeling like our life doesn't have meaning or value without it, whether we're hanging on to wanting that person to want to do what we want to do, whether we're hanging on to the youth we used to have and that we mourn, whether we're hanging on to wanting to have a cup of tea but there's no tea in the house. Tiny clingings or wantings or graspings or greeds, different words used to translate the Pali word for greed, which is a lobha. Lobha, L-O-B-H-A. Lobha, generally we translate it as greed, as the catch-all. That's the first root poison. Well, what do you mean by that, Cheryl? I'm a little bit confused. Fair enough. When you're suffering, and suffering is a tricky translation as well, right? It's how dukkha is usually translated into English. But when I think of suffering, and I think a lot of us English or French speakers for that matter, think of the word suffering, it sounds really bad. Like suffering means suffering badly. So an actual better interpretation, a better translation of the word dukkha into English is unsatisfactoriness. Because unsatisfactoriness is everything from everything's really great right now, except my feet are a tiny bit colder than I'd like, but I'm super happy. So just the slightest little tiny bit of unsatisfactoriness is still a little, like the tiniest pinprick in your wonderful day. And then there's the gigantic sufferings, of course, death and loss and trauma. So greed is the first big root poison that leads to suffering. I want the banana. I won't let go of the banana. I don't care. I'm trapped in here. Ah! every minute, every day, we often go from wanting this to wanting that to wanting the other. You wake up, oh, what do I want for breakfast? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if you don't get what you want for breakfast and you pout, then there's a bit of suffering. Just saying. That'll happen tomorrow morning for some of you. Probably. Probably for me. The breakfast they serve here is lovely, but it's not what I tend to eat. So I'm like, oh, where's my kale shake with cacao in it? You know, I can go there and be all sad. Or I can go, okay, this is different. Let's eat that. Everybody's going, ew, kale and cacao, what's wrong with her? Yeah, that's what my hubby says too. Whatever. He still drinks them because I'm the boss. Anyway, no. Sort of. Let's not go there. Hope he's not watching. Just kidding, honey. All right. The first root of poisonous emotion is greed. You're going to hear more about it tomorrow. Greed or wanting, or just subtly wishing there was just one more thing. Right? It doesn't have to be obvious at all. It can be very subtle and very tricky. Another word for it that's a little less sort of a derogatory word, we think quite derogatory, is attachment. And we're attached to that. We like that. We want that. We're happier with it. Maybe you got it and you're like, darn, I forgot my favorite journal. And you didn't have a tantrum. It didn't break your heart. But there's just a little bit of rats, a little bit of clinging to that thing. Pay attention. Poison's bad. Antidotes are good. The antidote to greed, $5 if you figure it out, it's generosity. Giving. Sharing. So again, hear more about that tomorrow night. The second poison is anger or aversion. Your second monkey you met in your second clearing was angry. It was growling and spitting and hostile and aggressive and scary. I had a really extraordinary opportunity about 18 years ago. I was in Uganda, Africa, and I was able to go on a day trek in the protected area to view the mountain gorillas. Quite an extraordinary experience. We were able to contribute funds to the preservation of those noble beasts and anti-poaching movements and etc. So I actually was, after a long trek through the jungle, they would take 4 people and the animals were habituated, and don't worry, all the animal lovers, which is all of you, I did a lot of research to make sure that this didn't harm in any way those beautiful beasts. In fact, help them be protected, which was true at that time. I can't speak for what it is now because I don't know. I don't have the data on that. But so we trekked into the jungle, and we found when you sat quietly, you were allowed to take flash photography or anything. You got 60 minutes in silence, very meditative, to watch mountain gorillas. And we were quite lucky in that we watched a whole family that had been gradually habituated to being gently viewed for an hour a day. And there was the silverback, this giant 600, 700, 800-pound monster. And there was a young mom with a babe at the breast. The baby gorilla was maybe 3 days old. And there was some young, roughhousey, teenagery gorillas. And to watch these beasts, and to watch the little teenage gorillas copy the big dad gorilla, silverback. Bam, bam, bam. It's like the trees practically shake. As 800-pound gorilla beat its chest, things happen. We weren't under any threat that we knew of. But what I'm bringing forward there is your monkey, your angry monkey, the power to destroy. Should that silverback have decided blonde chicks from Canada piss me off, I would have been dead. Anger destroys. Destroys trust, destroys our health, destroys our relationships. It's the root cause, it's the root poison mostly of war, trauma, crimes, many crimes. So anger is a poison. We know that. Now and then we have this righteous indignation, which actually feels kind of good. We're angry on the side of justice. We're angry for a good cause, against animal cruelty, against child trafficking. Goodness, I'm sure we're all on board for that. But even there, the Buddhist teaching is, it's not be a patsy and let bad stuff happen at all. But it's not to act from anger. You could act from conviction. You could act from clarity. You can act from what in Tibetan training we call wrathful compassion. You don't act from anger. Don't worry, we're not wussies. We'll fight for justice and good, but when you can fight without anger, with clarity, compassion, and this shall not stand, this will end, we will prevent that. It's far more powerful. And you're not poisoning yourself and others with the flavor of anger. We can talk more about that another time. It's a pretty deep topic. So first, poison, greed, wanting, gimme, gimme, gimme. I'll only feel good if I have a bigger bouquet of flowers. I'll only feel good if I have a better computer. I'll only feel good if I have better students. Goodness, where'd this riffraff come from? See, this is why you shouldn't really broadcast me. That was a joke. No one's, I don't think, psychologically traumatized yet. You know, I don't want to sound judgmental, and this may come out as judgmental, and I'll own that. But why do people buy a new car every year or two? Doesn't your old car still work pretty well after a year or two? The amount of debt, because we want something just a little bit newer, something just a little, with a few extra features. You know, no shame for any of us who buy something new. I don't buy new cars, but I bought a new iPhone a couple years ago. Did several upgrades since this one. I'm all right. But what is that mind state? And it's not, there's nothing wrong with buying nice things. Nothing. But I'm pointing to, do we ever stop to say, how happy is it going to make me? Right? Think of something you bought that you really liked or like now. Whether anything from a piece of jewelry to a, back in the day, record album or CD. Wonderful, lovely, nothing wrong with it. I acquire things that I enjoy as well, no problem. But did it last forever? Did it keep you happy forever? Your biggest, most beloved purchase, maybe it's your house. That's a huge, beautiful purchase. Maybe it is your vehicle. Maybe it's a piece of jewelry. Maybe it's a piece of art. Maybe it's a really good espresso machine. These are good. Have them. No problem. But when we get into trouble is when we think acquiring, the stuff we acquire, the greed stuff will keep us happy forever. So then there's anger, big gorilla, arr, scary monkey, can rip, destroy, kill, maim, certainly destroy your mind state, certainly destroy your happiness for an hour or a day or a long time. And then you're like, but there's three. Quite right. The third poison is delusion. Lobha, dosa, moha. I didn't say the Pali word for anger is dosa, D-O-S-A. And moha, M-O-H-A, is delusion, confusion. I'm not going to talk a ton about that one tonight, but it's essentially, we forget the nature of reality. Well, that's a pretty obscure thing to say if you've never heard it before. We forget that everything changes and everything ends, and as sad as cancer is, as sad as heart disease is, as sad as aging can feel, it's natural. Well, maybe not cancer quite, but in a way it is. I don't mean that way. But what I mean is things coming to an end is natural. Things falling apart is the nature of things. There's nothing in this room that's not going to fall apart in the next few minutes or few days. These are going to fall apart in a few days or hours. The flowers, this might last for, I don't know, a bunch of decades. Maybe when I die, someone else will acquire it, but it's eventually going to get broken or melted down or lost in an earthquake or something. The mountains outside that we can't see right now, they're going to all change, earthquakes, etc. Nothing lasts forever. If we can remember that fully in our being at all times, weird as this may sound, we'd never grieve. We'd never grieve. We'd say, oh, darn, it was their time. Or, oh, darn, that's a dreadful accident. But the loss of life, the loss of youth, beauty, the loss of an object. I was out with a friend last night who, I'm going to say misplaced, hopefully not lost, but lost their eyeglasses and their change purse where we were. Things disappear, things get forgotten. Maybe Oliver Twist was there and nicked them. Possible. A monkey! A monkey got them, that's what happened. Trained monkey. Delusion, nature of reality, pretty big topic, going to leave it for now. 3 root poisons, 3 antidotes. I mentioned one, the antidote to selfishness and greed is generosity. You can guess probably the antidote to anger and hate is loving kindness and compassion, good kindness. And the antidote to confusion is clarity and wisdom. These are classic deep teachings. We'll cover lots of other time. So to review so far, I've introduced this idea, I'll probably revisit, of the sun is always shining under the clouds. Under the clouds in turbulent negative mind states, there is calm. Sure as heck doesn't feel like it, but there is calm, there is peace. Under anger, there is love, because you know that. You can be enraged with someone, and then your sweetheart of a grandchild trundles in, and you're suffused in love in an instant. The love is there. You don't have to go, sorry kid, I'm full of anger, I've got to go find a bunch of love for you, hang on. If you do, we might need to talk. But no, it's there. When something, your gorgeous little grandchild toddles in, the rage, the hurt, the pain, it temporarily, maybe only for a moment or two, settles out and you feel the love that's there. You feel the love that's there. First thing, sun under the clouds. Second thing, Buddha was a great shrink, great psychologist. 3 poisonous mind states, 3 overall negative emotions and behaviors. I've covered them briefly, as stated several times. I'm going to cover them more and more now. And then, thankfully, because if we stop there, it's a very depressing teaching, and we should all go home and not come back. If all it is, yep, there's a lot of poison. You'll probably find a better place to be. But the next part is, and there are 4 noble mind states. 4 beautiful, positive, we'll call them emotional states or mind states for this evening. The Pali term is the Brahma Viharas. Brahma meaning noble, elevated. Noble's a nice translation. Viharas meaning homes or abodes. So the 4 noble abodes, to put it in the vernacular, these are 4 mind states you want to hang out in. You want to move in and stay. You can never get evicted. If you're evicted, you just walk back in. And I'm going to, of course, describe them in a moment. The 4 positive mind states, the 4 beautiful states of mind, the 4 states of mind that in your own way you're all familiar with deeply. You feel these naturally, often. You may not have called them this before. You may have called them this before. But the 4 are loving kindness, metta in Pali, compassion, which is karuna in Pali. More good pet names right here. So metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, upekkha, equanimity, and mudita, empathetic joy. We'll talk a bit about those in just a second. But in the guided meditation I took you through this afternoon, you went through the forest. You found first monkey, greedy monkey. You found second monkey, angry monkey. And you found third monkey, deluded, confused monkey. But they all had potential. They're all quite lovely. There's antidotes to help each of the 3 of them out. And they came along with you. And then you came to the 4th big mandala, circular, beautiful clearing, did you not? And in that clearing was an elephant. And that elephant represents a number of things. It's a symbol. It's, many of us find it to be a useful, beautiful symbol. I'm actually wearing an elephant t-shirt, partly by accident, because I have quite a few of them. And that elephant represents a number of things. Awakening, I know that's an odd word if you're not used to it. Enlightenment, another odd word. But the absence of any suffering. Just easy, beautiful mind state. So for tonight, I want to put forward that the 4 legs of the elephant are the posts, the basis, the roots, positive emotions. These are the 4 Brahma Viharas. So I'll talk a little bit about each of them. Oh, and I have finger puppets. There's a monkey. My significant other found these somewhere and figured this would make my career. Very nice of him. We have monkeys. You come see them close up later. We have a monkey. We have an elephant. We actually got them 3. And we have a llama. So, all of us have monkeys. All of us have an elephant. And if we're lucky, we've also got a llama or 2 or 3. We've got some teachers. We've got people who help us tame our monkey and liberate our elephant. Yes, folks, this is a Island Dharma first. We've never had finger puppets. You saw it here first. The elephant of awakening. In the visualization, I invited you, the elephant invited you. The elephant's yours, by the way. It's yours and not yours. It's your inner depth wisdom that's always present from, arguably from a Buddhist point of view, from the moment of conception. You were born completely awake. You were born completely formed Buddha internally. But there's clouds. There's clouds of conditioning, emotions, of being bullied in grade 6, and I'm not at all being facetious. And these lay some clouds down for each of us in different ways at different times. But the son of the elephant, the wisdom, those 4 noble mind states that, yes, I'm going to talk a little bit more about, are all there. It's a very interesting view. And for those of us raised either within or around, as most of us in Canada we're almost all Canadians here, we were raised in or around more of a Christian or maybe a Judeo-Christian faith. Whether it was your family's faith or not, you kind of grew up in it. I mean, we're celebrating Christmas soon. I'm a Buddhist, but I celebrate Christmas. It's lovely, the birth of light in the darkness. A Buddha called Jesus Christ, meaning an awake being that taught compassion and wisdom. Heck yes. But, and I'm going to oversimplify something vast, and I don't mean to offend at all. But in a Judeo-Christian teaching, the teaching is we are born in original sin, and we work to redemption. That's a fine and wonderful model. In a Buddha Dharma tradition, you're born perfect. You're perfect. You got some confusion. You can call it sin. Layered on there, but under it is the elephant. Under it is awake mind. Imagine growing up knowing that, and not in an ego weird way at all, but that you're perfect. You're unstained. You just got some stuff you can clear out and then rest in your perfection. I love that idea. So I love the elephant. The elephant's inside you, and your elephant already has it all figured out. Or not figured out non-conceptually. And it is simply, gently plodding you towards the place you already know, and you already are, which is profound, loving, kind, calm ease. I sure wish I had the ability to bonk each of us on the head right now and feel that way all the time. That's what fully awake mind experiences, a so-called enlightened mind. I'm not there yet by any means, but there's more and more moments and days and experiences of that grace. And these 4 beautiful Brahma Viharas, noble mind states, are what is left when the sin, the clouds, the confusion dissolves. So I've named them, and I'll teach a little bit on each of them now. So loving kindness, or metta, is really beautiful and fairly easily relatable emotion or state when you hear it. It's a type of love that is deeply generous, and it doesn't have attachment in it. So, if you have a spouse or a loved one or a dear friend, you love them, probably quite a lot. But if you're a normal human being, there's also some clinging and attachment. You want them to stay. You want them to remain your partner. You might get a little upset or threatened or annoyed if they want to leave you. You might be devastated if they want to leave you. So the normal way most of us experience love, it's a bit, it's got some taint of attachment, and that's not bad. It's normal. Don't beat yourself up. I've got it too. But this type of noble love is without attachment. It's just, I love that being. I love all beings. Warm, friendly affection towards all beings. If you're best friends in this class right now, and someone you've never met who, whatever you had a small encounter with today and it irritated you and you don't think you like them very much, with metta you'll feel, ideally, the same amount of warm, loving affection for the irritating person you don't know as you do for your good friend. That's a pretty high standard. Imagine if we could all love without criticism or attachment. Imagine if we could actually love unconditionally. Everybody. People we radically disagree with, maybe certain political figures that some of us may have a bit of a hard time with. Naming no names. Wink, wink. Imagine if you feel the same kind of loving, warm friendliness towards your enemy as to your dear heart. And, arguably, arguably be completely fine if your dear heart wants to go off in another direction. I love you so much, I want you to be happy, I want you to be well. This is pretty hard for us mere mortals to do, and yet sometimes we do it. Just have this warm, loving kindness feeling. Some of you may feel it in meditation some of the time this weekend, or have already, just, oh my goodness, really nice in the heart. I kind of love all these people. It's lovely, and it's a glimpse, and it's a feeling. That's the first one. That's the first pillar, the first leg of the elephant. Boom, solid. The second is compassion. And the explanation or description of compassion is very similar to the way we would understand it in Western language and thinking and psychology. But it's that we notice the suffering of others, and of course self, but I'm going to use other right now. We notice the suffering of others. Sometimes we don't because we're busy, or we're not very good at picking up cues, or we ignore, or we turn away because there's so much suffering and it's so painful, or we don't understand what suffering is. That's okay. But compassion has 3 steps, 3 qualities. We notice the suffering of others. The second, we are moved by the suffering of others, because those don't have to go together, right? You might see a person this time of year, in our beautiful and privileged communities, you might see a person out in the cold who doesn't have a home that you know of, and they're cold and shivering, and tonight maybe soaking wet, and maybe they've got a cup, and maybe they're asking for assistance. And you might notice the suffering and register it as suffering. But you may or may not be moved by the suffering. All of you beautiful, good persons in this room, this being included, on occasion might just have so much going on that you see it and it's too much. There's so much pain, you're worried about your friend, you're nursing a dying parent, and you say, well, we can kind of wall off. It doesn't make you a bad person. But if we notice the suffering and we're also moved by the suffering, we've got time and space or attention to go, that person really looks cool. That moves my heart. I feel moved by the suffering. The third step is to be moved to do something to alleviate the suffering. It's very simple. Notice the suffering, be moved by the suffering, and be moved to do something, if we can, what we can, to alleviate the suffering. You all do this all the time. You do it with your friends and your kids and people at work all the time. Not consistently, probably, because I don't think you're awake Buddhas yet. If you are, I'm extremely thrilled for you. That's the next one, empathetic joy. But compassion, you do it all the time. You notice, gosh, you look really tired. Are you all right? Can I help? Oh, I'm good. Just, I'm making something up. I had to move and I hurt my back and I'm a little worn out. Well, I've got time. How about we come over and help you? Just simple. That's a simple compassion. You notice, it moves you, you do what you can. You do it all the time. But I will challenge you, Buddha, to cultivate it more. Be more mindful and more aware. And also self-compassion. I'm not going to go into that a bunch tonight, but we might tomorrow in the daytime sessions. Because holy smokes, you're all really nice people. I know most of you quite well. But you're not very nice to yourselves. Step up there a little bit, please, or a lot, to this self-compassion. Just noticing your own struggles. Being kind. Being moved by your own struggles. That's not self-pity or self-indulgence if you don't wield it that way. It's, wow, I'm really having a tough time here. Yeah, this hurts. I'm moved by that. How can I protect my heart? How can I fill myself up? How can I reach out to something that might be beneficial? So compassion is not a one-way street, my friends. Mm-hmm. It's very much a two-way street. To have compassion for others and compassion for self. But I think we'll talk more about that tomorrow. I think that'll be a useful exploration. The first one, metta, loving kindness, friendliness. Another nice translation is loving friendliness. Just this nice, kind of beatific, kind, non-judgmental warmth towards beings. Second is compassion. The third is mudita, empathetic joy or sympathetic joy. And that's where we are truly happy for the good fortune or happiness of others. Someone and these are pretty common examples, but I think they're quite easily relatable ones. Let's say you're going through a patch in your life where you've got a really horrible job and you hate it and you can't find any other work and you keep being turned down for other work. You're really struggling at this nasty job, maybe with an unpleasant boss and an unpleasant workplace, and your dear friend gets a dream job. And ideally, we have mudita. You know, we're just thrilled. I'm so thrilled. That's wonderful. You got that position. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. Without a little, but because we're human, and in this example I've laid out, we're really struggling in that place. And we might be thrilled for our friend, truly, because we're really lovely people. But often it comes with a little bit of a thorn, right? If we're struggling in that way. Not because we're yucky people. You're not yucky people. And if you are, clean that up. But often we're happy, but we're a little bit sad for ourselves. We're happy, or we're a bit clingy. We've got a bit of greedy monkey in there. No kidding, we're human. Wow, I'm so happy for you. I would love a job like that. That's okay, that's okay. But there's also times, maybe for your grandkids, or maybe for someone where they get something they really want, and you're just glowing-hearted, happy for them. I'm so thrilled for you, honey. That's amazing. What an extraordinary thing. And there isn't that, wish I had it. It feels better. That one feels better than that. Right? Don't beat yourself up. The better care we take of our own good heart, the more full our own good heart is, the more we practice, meditate, love, hang out with skillful, wonderful people. They don't have to be interested in Buddhism to be an awesome person to hang out with, but hang out with awesome people, mountain bike friends, poker buddies. If they've got good hearts, good intentions, poker buddies can have good hearts. Come on, watch out for your stereotype. If they've got good hearts, generous in their own way, they care about humanity in their own way, great! Who cares if they ever meditated? Hang out with good beings. Be a good being. Smarten up when you're not beginning that. And cultivate this empathetic joy for others. Celebrate and feel moved and happy for others' happiness. And some of us know, most of us probably know someone who's like that. When something good happens for you, that particular friend or family member, they're just unabashedly delighted for you. And there's never that sense of, oh, I'd like that too. I can think of a couple of friends right now where you never feel you kind of have to dampen down your good fortune because they're not doing well. Even if they're not doing well, we're like, yay! I'm so pleased for you. And there's not that little self-reference. We all have it in us. We all have it sometimes. When you have it, go, that's what that feels like. And when you have it, oh, I wish that was me, be compassionate to yourself for being you. No beating up. When you beat yourself up, stop. I'm going to read a poem about that in a second. Oh, yes, I like to read poems. I'll read that poem now. It's about the monkeys. Because monkeys are lovely. They're trying to keep us safe. I'm not checking email and save poems on here because it's convenient. And this is about don't beat yourself up, right? Monkey mind is fear, and it's trying to keep us safe, and it's lovely, and you're going to find out in a bit here through this retreat, the monkeys are lovely. They're fantastic. Don't remember, in that visualization that I took you through today, they came along, and then they saw the elephant with you, and then their greed and hatred and delusion melted away, and they were happy and loving and curious, and they scrambled up on the elephant's back with you. You don't want to eradicate monkeys. Monkeys are incredibly helpful because the monkey's a euphemism for the ego. Not the, I have an ego the size of certain previous presidents of the United States. Not that kind of ego, but ego that let you drive here safely. Ego that let you hear about or learn about the retreat and choose to come. Ego that lets you run your business and help people and be a good parent and volunteer. Ego's a wonderful thing. We are not after eradicating ego. We're after eradicating crazy, nasty, poison monkey ego. Those parts of our ego, our greed, our hatred, and our delusion. But not the monkeys themselves. Without them, you couldn't drive here because you wouldn't know how to navigate. You'd be a non-conceptual reality. You'd be very useless in real life. You can't say in Mahamudra all the time. You got to pee eventually. Just saying. Keeping it real. This poem is by someone called Kavari Patel, and it's called Thanking a Monkey. There's a monkey in my mind, swinging on a trapeze, reaching back into the past, or leaning into the future, never standing still. Sometimes I want to kill that monkey. shoot it square between the eyes so I won't have to think anymore or feel the pain of worry. But today I thanked her, and she jumped down, straight into my lap, trapeze still swinging as we sat still. So invite them onto the elephant's back and give them a cuddle. Don't hate your monkey. Greed, hatred, delusion, 3 poisonous mind states. I'm almost at the 4th. The 4th, positive Brahma Viharas, the noble mind states, the great psychological states you want to hang out in. You want to live in those neighborhoods all the time, and ideally never go into the greed, hatred, and delusion neighborhoods. And when you find yourself in there, go, oh, really crappy neighborhood, don't want to live here. I'm going to go back to one of those other 4 wonderful neighborhoods. They are called the 4 divine abodes. That's the translation into English. So we've got loving kindness, we've got compassion, we've got empathetic joy, and we've got equanimity. Equanimity is roughly, the Pali words upekkha, is being with things as they are. It's a fluid ability to accept the truth of reality, both the joyful truths and the wonderful things that come into our worlds. The neutral things are neither particularly positive nor negative, and the difficult and painful things. I often quote, it's hardly an original thought, it's certainly not mine, but that beautiful serenity prayer. With the courage to accept the things I cannot change, to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is equanimity. There's things we can't change. Can't change our eviction. But we can be with it with equanimity, which is not reacting, or when we react, oh no, this is bad news, to be able to come back to balance quite quickly. It's bad news, it's not news I wanted, but here it is, and can I be coexisting with it with grace? It's the opposite of fighting against reality. Now, don't get me wrong here, I used to really not care for the idea of equanimity for the first couple of years of my Dharma studies, back in the 80s or something. Meaning going to class and learning these things and reading them, like equanimity sounds like giving up. If you've met me, you know I like to make things happen, not give up. Equanimity sounds like being a bit of a quitter. Equanimity sounds like, children are starving, but there's just the nature of reality. That's of course not what it is. That was my incorrect understanding of a concept that sounded to me, because I didn't know better, and that's fine. You don't know better till you learn more sometimes. But it sounded to me like, it's just you accept stuff. It sounded like whatever, right? You heard about the famine in Darfur and they really need help. Yeah, that's super sad. Droughts suck. Doesn't mean that at all. It means, and I'm going to simplify it, maybe complicate it, maybe both, but let's say right now, and I apologize, I'm not up on world events at the moment, so there may indeed be a famine in a particular country right now that's not top of mind for me. But let's say there is, in Darfur, and we hear about it, and it's in the news, and there's a lot of death and illness and dehydration and people dying of starvation and lack of clean water. Can we, the group of 26 or so of us here in this room, fix it tonight? No. Can we in some small way make a small difference? Yes. We could pass a hat here, find a boots on the ground ethical NGO over there that's providing wells to villages with trained engineers that know how to work in that climate and in that culture. And we could send our bucket of money there. That would be something to do that counts. So equanimity is to be with things as they are, and that example would be we accept the truth of this famine in Darfur and lots of death happening now. We accept it. We don't go, it's not true, or that is awful. Well, it is awful, but we accept this is true. And we be with it as the truth of what it is. But that doesn't mean we don't act. And we act from what? Compassion, not anger. We act from right intention. And we act in as small or a large way as we can. So when I finally understood that, I started to love equanimity. Instead of thinking, well, it's a bit of a cop-out. It's a bit of a, that's the way it is. Nothing you can do about it, which no one ever taught me that. That was my misunderstanding. So equanimity, imagine And you've all had this experience, maybe over something small, maybe over something big. I mean, you got fired abruptly, and shock, and it reeled you a bit, but then you accepted it pretty quickly. In fact, this happened to a family member of mine. Big corporate restructuring. This happened on December 1st, a week ago. And she said, I'm feeling I might be getting laid off on December 1st. They're doing all this restructuring. They're going to move the marketing department. The new CEO's got different views. I have a feeling I could be on the chopping block. Nobody's told me, but I think it's coming. Really good at what they do. Super valued employee. It wasn't about that. And so on the 30th, I texted them and said, gee, I hope, the news tomorrow is whatever you wish it to be. And they said, yeah, actually, I already heard. I'm gone. And I said, oh, sorry to hear it. And she said, yeah, but I'm actually pretty good. I'm out for a jog on Dallas Road with the dogs, and it's a beautiful morning, and I'm going to use the next 6 weeks to really work on my health and look for something else. Right? There was equanimity about it. At other times, same person, same circumstance, might have not been bothered about it. Equanimity feels so much easier than fighting against reality. So much easier than tearing our hair, rending our garments because of the eviction notice or the firing. And I'm not intending to sound like I'm making light of our pain and our dukkha's. I'm so not. But many of you were parents, all of you have been around kids. Have you ever had the experience with a child that you care about who maybe comes home from school and they're incredibly distraught because Janet and John and Geraldo and Micah wouldn't sit with them and don't want to be their friends anymore? Something of that ilk that is so painful, as we recall, for that little being, and yet you're looking at it with 40 years more experience, and you're reasonably sure this too shall pass. Probably tomorrow, when whoever names I just made up, I don't remember Micah, say, hey, will you come play with us? And it's all better. But knowing that that suffering's gonna end, probably, knowing that it's not as a life-changing tragedy as it is in the experience of this little being this time, doesn't make it any better for that being at that time. It can a little bit. You can very graciously say, oh, that's so hard, that's so sad. What are the scary thoughts? The scary thoughts is I'll never have a friend ever again. What does that feel like? It hurts so bad, Mom and Dad. It hurts so bad. I'm so sorry, honey. I'm so sorry. I'm illustrating how to be a good, emotionally intelligent parent right now. Because what you do is you validate the kid's point of view first. You don't say, oh, honey, it's not that bad. They'll like you tomorrow. Even if you're 99.9% sure that's what's going to happen. It's not what you say first. But anyway, I'll try to get out of shrink mode now. And then you say, but honey, it's possible we don't know. It might change tomorrow. But either way, and so on and so forth. Equanimity is to be with the pain of the situation and change what you can, read what you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So each of these concepts I'm bringing in tonight deserves about a 10-day retreat each, and that's fine. But I wanted to give you a lovely map, a reminder for some, drawing some of these things together for others, and an introduction for others. The sun is always shining. The moon is radiant up there. We just can't experience it right now. The clouds are temporary, but they can engulf us, they can hurl us against the wall in a tornado and kill us if we're not careful. But when we can remember it's going to blow out eventually, maybe we can find the eye of the storm and hang on tight until it passes. Then we got into the 3 poisons, greed, hatred, and delusion, 3 monkeys which have antidotes, generosity, love, and wisdom. Then I played with finger puppets because I'm weird. And then we got into the elephant of awakening, of depth. It's already there. Whether you believe that or not, you don't need to believe anything, but take it under advisement as something to explore, something to investigate. And then the 4 noble mind states, the Brahma Viharas of loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. Well, should probably wrap this up soon. But I have 2 more poems first. So where does that bring us? Well, it brings us to the Buddha's. The Buddha is a great psychologist. Here are the negative 3 poisonous emotions to learn, to work with, to identify, to apply the antidotes, to hold our hearts with love, not beat our monkey up when we're in them, and to remember this too shall pass. Here are 4 positive mind states. That it's a 2-pronged approach to these four positive mind states. One is you can cultivate them. You can cultivate more loving kindness. Oh, that person pisses me off. Wait, Cheryl. I do wish them happiness. I do wish them kindness. I hope they are well. You can cultivate these. That's one side. To actually work to cultivate and water the seeds, as Thich Nhat Hanh says. Water the seeds of the flowers in your mind garden and pull out the roots of the weeds. Beautiful. Such a simple, beautiful image. So we want to cultivate the four, but also they're an outcome. So there's something we can cultivate these four positive mind states, but they're also an outcome of practicing meditation, of listening to good Dharma, doing other wholesome, beautiful things, of volunteering your time in the next few weeks in your community for the less fortunate, of taking good action. That when we meditate or practice or are loving or act in a wholesome way, we often feel an outcome of that is more sense of compassion, more sense of loving kindness. So we can cultivate the muscles, we can train in the gym of Dharma, and it's also an outcome of training in the gym of Dharma. This is a very good thing. And the last thing I'll say, before I read a poem about loving kindness and a poem about equanimity, is this is why you might want to meditate. Because meditation, it's not a panacea of awesomeness that fixes everything, or we'd all be fully awake Buddhists by now. But by cultivating what we're doing, even in this beautiful weekend, cultivating opening the heart. Oh, that's why she keeps telling me to put my hand there or breathe in and out of it. Wake it. Cultivating opening up the loving kindness and compassion. Cultivating calming the mind. In today's practice, it may change tomorrow, I may introduce something different tomorrow, but today's practice was to breathe into the belly at first, grounding you, helping you arrive. Be kind to your body, your tired, sore bodies, for many of you. And then into the heart, we work the rest of the day, breathing in and out of the heart, opening the heart, calming the mind, blah, 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 story, blah, 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 worry. Can we just come to the heart for one breath? The reasons, there are so many, but some of them to meditate, is it helps clear some of the clouds. It helps maybe just sort of get a glimpse of the rainbow through the clouds. It helps calm at times. It doesn't always, of course. It's not a magic panacea. We all wish it was. But it helps calm the mind and the turbulence at times so we can feel the grace. And that can bolster our confidence and our hope and our faith. So we keep coming back year after year, or after years. Yay. It's that simple and that challenging, that practicing in certain ways, including non-denominational, Christian, and other wonderful ways, can help penetrate through the clouds so we can rest in those four noble mind states, so we can experience that grace and that kindness. And we're a much happier, more loving person when we're more in contact with those four pillars. We're much more effective in the world. We can serve more without burning ourselves out as much. We can be the level head in a contentious situation and say, okay, you both have some pretty valid points of view here, and I'm going to ask you to just both stop for a bit. There's a lot of unkindness and unfairness being thrown around this table. Let's just take time to really hear what you've got going on. You want to really understand that. And let's, you can be a force for good. I think that's a Marvel slogan or something, Marvel movie slogan, but we'll be Dharma, force for good. All right. So, in the worst of the turbulence, there is calm. I don't believe it either. Well, I do now. I believe it only cognitively when I'm in the turbulence of terrible emotion. I can use my mind to say, Cheryl, this too will pass. This is temporary, but there's visceral, I said earlier in the day about stirring up biochemistry and everything else that's happening, fight or flight. But even just hanging on to that beautiful truth of this too will pass, this is temporary, as painful, as scary, as difficult as this is, me and my elephant will get through this. It helps a little bit. It helps a little bit. So I want to read a poem about the type of love, the loving kindness type of love. I felt that this piece captured that flavor beautifully. Bear with me a momento while I find it. And then one on equanimity. There it is. This is a poem called Love by a Buddhist sage from the 12th century AD called Guru Lugomi. It's titled Love, but hear this flavor of this type of love. And this is the non-clinging, open palm, metta type of love. If you develop love truly great, rid of the desire to hold and possess, that strong, clean love untarnished by lust, that love which does not expect to be repaid, that love which is firm but not grasping, enduring but not tied down, gentle and settled, diamond hard but unhurting, helpful but not interfering, cool and refreshing, giving more than taking, dignified but not proud, soft but not rude, that love which leads to enlightenment, then you will be washed of all worldly. Sounds pretty good to me. That would be white Tara love, Chenrezi love. Radiant love for all beings. White Tara doesn't say, great love to all of you except that guy in the back. Just doesn't. Undifferentiated kindness and love. And then a poem to capture the flavor of equanimity. Often you can capture it more skillfully than regular speech. Thank goodness for the arts. Fund them well. This is a poem that many of you may be familiar with. It's by Rumi, and it's called The Guest House. Bears repeating. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if there are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep into your house, empty it of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So, let's meet all our states, the ones we prefer and the ones we don't. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Because if it's a nasty monkey, it just means you invite it into your lap. Maybe give it your cell phone. And say, it's okay, I gotcha, you're okay. So, in a moment, we'll meditate for about 5 minutes or so, and then I'll ring the bell to close the evening, to close the day. But just before that, a couple of very small, practical, logistic issues, simple ones. We begin tomorrow morning at 7:15 with a silent sit. And what I do for the morning retreat, even if you're about half of you are off-site and will be driving here, about half of you are on-site and will be able to remain hopefully quite quiet and walk here, is I won't do any speaking at the beginning of that sit. I'll come to the front of the room and I'll ring the bell and we'll just move into silent meditation in and out of the heart, utilizing what I taught today. It's quite lovely to not have any verbiage at all, to come out of sleep into awakeness, whatever morning rituals you have, and then into the sit. If you're staying off-site, a couple of things I want to say to keep you safe and well. One is, even though you may not feel it, your reaction time is now slower than when you drove here 8-10 hours ago. You may feel just as wound as usual, but you're not. A way to quickly test your physiological reactions, that your reaction time's a bit slower. So just be mindful and thoughtful when you drive home. Don't play the radio or have any distraction. Just focus on driving home gently and well. If you're going home to a home that has two-legged beings in it, attempt to not engage with them very much. If you didn't warn them about that, be compassionate and say, hey, honey, the big mean teacher asked me to not talk very much at all tonight. So I'll just let you know it was a really interesting day, and I look forward to talking to you tons about it. That may or may not work. And blessings if you live with a two-legged being that's not used to this and wants to tell you all about their work day. It's not terrible, and next time you might be able to set it up a bit more gracefully. Or stay here. Just saying. If you're going to a place with only four-legged beings or other non-chattery beings, wonderful. Please don't check your email or your texts or watch TV or anything. You're all grown ups, you can make your own choice, but you've done some really beautiful work today, even if it feels like it's all been just horrible, crazy chaos and you hate it and you're probably not coming back tomorrow anyway. You've done some really beautiful work today. Come back tomorrow. Tell me all about it. Because I've been there many times and have great empathy for the struggles of the mind and the heart. So just drive carefully, please, my dears. Sleep well. Get up and come back. And be seated 5 minutes before 7:15. And it's a very precious time that morning to sit. Depending on the retreat, we sometimes have someone open the chapel early because those of you staying here often like to meditate extra in the morning. We don't have a person available at the moment, which is totally fine, but if you're staying here on site and you're an early riser and you'd like to meditate earlier, we can give you the key and you can be the person that opens the hall. If not, we're going to open the hall at 6:30. It does have to be locked overnight. So is there anyone who would like that? It's not required. Sometimes there's people that like to meditate really early. Look, heck no, we're all tired. Okay, no problem. So the hall will be opened at 6:30 in the morning if you do want to come in early and do some quiet sitting. If there's anybody sitting quietly in here and you came in to stretch or something, do it very, very quietly in the back so you don't disturb them at all. And have a wonderful night's sleep. Could I have someone volunteer to ring the bell about 7:05? Someone who's staying on site just in case people off site can't make it on time. Come on. Come on. All you have to do is come in here 10 minutes before the sit and ring a bell. I'd like to see some compassion from someone, please. Thank you, Marie. Bell's here. And ring it. If you like, you can ring it in whichever dorm you're staying in, but mostly out here. Open the foyer and ring it in there. It's about 7:05. This is 7:15 sit. Thank you for that. And then we'll just meditate for 5 or 6 minutes. I'll ring the bell, do a brief dedication. You're welcome to stay meditating. You're welcome to make your way home or to your room and just be really kind to your heart. Don't read books. Don't, muck about. You'll want to probably, but just try to stay with your direct experience. When in doubt, lay in bed and breathe in and out of your heart. In and out of your heart. Oh, but I'm going to throw you a bone. Forgot almost. I do have a handout for you on those 4 noble mind states. It's just 3 pages long. It's a one double-sided sheet, and then the 3rd page. So you want to take 2 pages. Do you mind just putting that back on the piano for me, honey? Thank you. So you can just take one, and you can read that tonight or tomorrow if you wish. It's just a brief, fairly secular explanation of those 4 noble mind states for you. You'll need to take one if you prefer not to read. So, sleep well, no matter what. If you're awake, breathe in and out to your heart. Put your hand on your heart. Be kind to your monkey mind. Be kind to your heart. You've done really beautiful work today, and I'm honored to be a small part of supporting that. So we'll sit for about 5 minutes in the evening to close. Just relaxing, lots of concepts, lots of ideas. You've stirred things up, that's just fine. For now, let it all melt away. And just be in the body, gently breathing into the heart on the in-breath, it out from the heart. We'll say some of the traditional phrases to go with the 4 noble mind states. And we'll each send out a heartfelt wish to everybody in this room. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering in body and mind. May you have happiness and joy and good things befall you. May you dwell in equanimity, not being close to some and distant to others. And then sending out from our collective hearts to all beings in the Namgyal, Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, and all the continents across the planet. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering in body and mind. May all beings have good circumstances and wonderful things befall them. May all beings dwell in equanimity, swaying gently with the difficulties and the joys of being alive. And then bringing your attention to your own good heart. Saying and thinking to yourself and for yourself. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering in body and in mind. May I welcome with an open heart good things that come my way. May I celebrate them with grace and appreciate them with depth. And may I dwell in equanimity. May I relate to the ups and downs of this human life without clinging, with courage and with compassion for self as well as others. May we all be happy and well. May we all be free from suffering in body and mind. May we all celebrate and appreciate good fortune for self and others. And may we all dwell in equanimity, changing the things we can, accepting the things we cannot, and being wise enough to know the difference, so we can act with clarity and compassion to make the world a better place, one mindful moment at a time. Thank you for your kind attention to the Dharma. Very much look forward to being with you tomorrow.